Hello, everyone. It's Mr. Nobody, and I'm bringing you another episode of Making Nobody Happy. And today I want to talk about meaning in life. Now, forgive me if this one sounds a little more like a lecture, but it's something I want to talk about. So, meaning in life. Meaning in life isn't a function of how big and grand and special and a unique a thing you're doing and what that makes of you. Meaning in life is a function of taking responsibility for and investing in the life that you have and what that makes of you. We can't all be Shakespeare or Kanye West or Bill Gates or Barack Obama or Einstein or Kobe Bryant or Martha Stewart, but we can all be great people. We all want to be important. It's a deep need we feel. We want to be an individual. We want to know that we matter, that we're seen and not forgotten. But seen by who? Important to who? How do you get that? If value is a product of being valued, then who is it that we're chasing, expecting to capture that value? Is it ourselves? I propose that there is never enough value and importance that you can capture from yourself to satisfy yourself. You were already the most important person in the world to you from the day you were born. Whatever great heights you achieve, you're still you and you're still going to feel like you. So, who then? What people do you need to be seen and recognized by to feel important? How many of them? How do you become important enough to someone to feel like you matter enough to yourself to be happy? Now, you could die as the most significant person in the world, known to millions, having chased history, and not have been important enough to anyone to actually have anyone who'd shed a tear at your graveside or feel your loss personally. And often, people who chase those heights have to sacrifice a lot along the way. But if meaning and value are only for those people who rise to the absolute greatest visibility out of the entire historical enormity of the human race, then the majority of all humanity is screwed. We're just lost in a pointless scramble to reach the top. To reach the top, we're just everything below the tip of the pyramid, which is tragic. There are but it's an almost insurmountable problem. There's 7 billion people in the world. Are you really going to bet your happiness in life and your existential worth on you somehow mattering enough for that many people to care about you and your story? Who are you to other people? Who are you to them, to the faceless mass of humanity? Most people out there have a hard time caring about or even seeing anyone beyond themselves. You got 7 billion competitors who are just as human as you are, and people are being born and people are dying every minute. Why should the world see you? And even if they do, in such a sea of humanity, how long can you expect that to last? How long can you keep your head poking up above those waves? Is it going to be long enough to build the meaning of your life on? Those 5 minutes of fame can pass really quickly. Now, the only real human society that matters, that sticks with you and provides durable meaning, is the actual network of people you touch that are close to you. If the people who are close to you don't know you and value and care for you, and if they never felt your care for investment in them, you're a nobody. You're faceless because you've missed out on the most basic level of human value that's available to everyone. Now, extremes are worth considering. How the greatest celebrity can feel lonely and empty. And don't we see in the news about how miserable those famous people can be? Isn't it shocking how many of them, famous singers, famous actors, terrible, unhappy lives, suicide, so many of them feel they don't even want to keep going with life. How can that be? How can the lives of these greatest living people feel lonely and empty to them? And how can lonely, menial workers feel important and fulfilled? Because I have met plenty of them who do. Most of us live somewhere in the middle. We're not really trying to make the list of the most influential people in the world. We just want to be more than what we are. So the really relevant question is, how do we do that? What's the best way? And if we're feeling at a very low ebb, at a very low value, how do we begin to climb when what we desire can seem so far off? Now, the real foundation of value isn't to matter to everyone, it's to matter to someone. Get a job and do well at it. Matter in that context. It doesn't really matter that much. It matters some, but it doesn't matter that much what job. It doesn't have to be basketball superstar. It's a foundation. Find a job where you can do well and matter to someone. Find a family or invest in the one that you already have. That is a pre-made resource for finding people to whom you can matter. Friends and neighbors are an option if you have the opportunity, the inclination, and the space in your life. A church or other social group, you can really matter within these spaces, especially where that whole world that you build there, maybe it's made out of 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 people. You can be a pretty big thing in that world that you build. You don't have to matter to everyone or be the most important person in the place. You just need to find a space where you matter to someone. And that's a foundation for a life. What you build on that foundation is up to you. But so many people make the mistake of thinking that the quickest way to value to a home is to just start stacking frames on top of each other to reach the highest point possible. Tall towers with shallow foundations fall easily. And a house built on a deep foundation, it might not rise as high, but it can endure the storms and the centuries, can provide a place of meaning and value and significance for you and for others and for ages to come. Talking about that makes me think of my own mother. I was at home recently and my parents weren't there. They were visiting my sister. And so I was just spending time alone in my parents' house. And it was kind of strange because they're a little older and it made me think about a time when maybe I won't come there anymore, and the times that I've had there and how strange it is to be there without them there. I was walking in my mother's garden, which is an absolutely beautiful place. I mean, it's like the most beautiful garden in our entire town. And I was looking around of it, and I always used to think when I was a kid, boy, mom likes to spend a lot of time in the garden. That's funny. Well, her mom liked to do that. But I was looking around at it, and I was remembering all the times I had there. I've seen people get their wedding photos taken in my parents' garden. And I looked around and I realized I am probably never going to create anything as complex or beautiful as this garden that my mother has produced. It's just this little plot of land in a small town in the middle of nowhere that most people don't know. And yet it is such a significant place. It has been for so many people for so many years. So many lives have been lived beautifully inside it. It's such a daily, wonderful experience for my mother and for my dad and for their family and for their friends. And just looking at it, I was suddenly feeling very humbled by my mom's garden and seeing it for the accomplishment that it was, the great work of creativity and beauty that it represented. But it's something very simple. It's just a garden. Same thing with my mother's house. It's just a house, but it's such a beautiful, welcoming place. I've spent so many times there. My whole family has, my whole extended family. It has been such a wonderful place to inhabit. But it's built on such a simple foundation. It's not built high. It's not like you can see it from across the whole state or across the whole country, but its roots are very deep. And the people that are inside it are experiencing something wonderful. And it's something that's truly endured for decades. You know, it made me realize something my mom talked to me about, how great people aren't always big visible people. They're often the small people who are right next door. And she talked about that to me, especially when our next door neighbor died, who's this old German lady, very sweet and wonderful person, would always welcome us into their home. And they would make little toys for us and little treats for us and things like that. They were great people. We were always welcome over at their house. We often have the gate open and go back and forth. and I'd run around and play in their they still used a clothesline, or go watch the husband at work in his little wood shop, or her working away in her kitchen and making things and painting things. He would make toys out of wood and she would paint them. But that's something my mother has always tried to make clear to me. And simple lives can be great lives. You see that too as you get to know teachers. It's not like teachers make the biggest salaries. It's not like they become the most famous people in the world, but the people to whose lives they've touched thousands of lives in immense ways. People feel passionate. They remember their names for the rest of their lives. And that's amazing. It's such a humble little thing. That's a case of a deep and wide foundation, not high. It's a deep foundation. Now, great lives provide places of meaning and comfort and protection and inspiration and watering for those around them and for those inside them. However small our lives may seem, we can create that place and we can find people to bring inside it. And however amazing, cathedral-like, and extensive our lives may seem, you could fail to fill that space with anyone, and it could be hollow. And I've also known some people like that, giant cathedrals of lives, and it's empty on the inside. Now, your house can be just as valued by the people within it as the greatest castle of a life. And it can feel warmer and more intimate if those people are close to you and known to you. And it can endure and provide a place of value and consequence for long, even after you're gone, if the foundations are deep. We remember those places. They have meaning that echoes through the lives of the people, echoes into the years, into the decades. Value isn't about the work that you do. It's about who you do the work for. Because value only comes from being valued by someone. The value of work done only for yourself is fleeting, because that kind of value is static. It's subject to your mood. It's dependent upon your feelings about yourself. But work done for someone or something you love and care about is work that matters and endures, and it forces you to recognize your value even when you won't. Even the smallest work rendered to God, to your highest conception of truth and goodness, has infinitely precious value. The question you ask yourself is, what is a truly stable container for my value, for the value I'm pursuing? Is it your work colleagues? Is it your high school friends? Is it society, God, the universe, your family, your parents or children, your friends on social media? Who is it that you're working to impress and to be valued by? And who is a truly stable and creative and expanding source and container for that value? And how can you best invest in it to gain it in them? So a final note I want to make is just on anti-fragility. Life is hard. Life is unpredictable. In fact, there is one thing that you can predict in life, and that is that you're going to face difficulties, disappointments, and tragedy. At the very least, you and everyone you care about will eventually suffer the tragedy of death. And however late it is in coming, it is always an unwelcome guest. The world will test whatever you try to build in it. Storms will come against the walls of the sheltered garden that you build. It's only a question of when and how big. No engineer builds a dam with the assumption that no floods will ever occur. The questions they ask when they're designing it are, how big and when is that flood going to come? The floods will come. Whatever you seek to build, it must be at least well-founded enough at a fundamental level that a wind that knocks the roof off won't also bring down the whole structure. So a life that is dependent on everything going perfectly and achieving everything that you hope for is a life that is fundamentally at the mercy of circumstance. It's fragile, no matter how impressive it looks, no matter how high you build it. You may not have time in life to accomplish everything you planned and needed or thought you needed to achieve value. You might get injured or miss your opportunities. You might get sick or suffer a crippling loss. You might get distracted or get forgetful or get lazy. You might have your just rewards stolen or just ignored. You might do everything right and then lose it all through a random twist of fate. The recent pandemic is a good example of that. Plenty of people probably worked for years to get a business off, and then before they could even start, they were shut down. They didn't know that was going to happen. That's just one of those twists of fate. The chances that you will do absolutely everything right and that everything will go absolutely perfectly for you are very slim. So your value in life can't be dependent on either you doing everything perfectly or on the world doing everything perfectly to you. Both circumstances and yourself are going to disappoint you at some point, probably very seriously. How are you ever going to be important enough to make your life have meaning and your value have substance if the whole construction is dependent on things going exactly the way that you planned? Have you planned on getting old? Have you planned on getting sick? Have you planned on getting weak? Have you planned on seeing your mind and your eyes fade? Because actually, those are all things you genuinely could plan on. So this understanding of the difficulty, the contingency of life, it has to be part of how we approach, how we build our lives. This has to be a fundamental concern in our approach to how we build our lives and their value and our importance and how we secure those existential goods that we need to keep going and to find meaning in life. We might not be able to impress the world. We might not be able to change it. We may not be able to do a lot of the things that we wish that we could and feel that we need to do to have a life worth being grateful for and happy with. We need a foundation that can endure some storms and some building problems. If you want to build something worth remembering, something likely to last, something that you can leave behind that will transfer value to the lives of others and have some enduring meaning and value to it. The question that we have to answer when we seek to build our value is, how will it survive? How will you survive if the world and yourself turn out to be less than you had hoped? How much of what you have built will still be standing after the floodwaters rise against it? How much of you will still stand after a defeat? What percentage of your peace and happiness will still be there? How much can you truly hold on to during a flood? How much can be rebuilt in the time you have if everything but the foundations goes? And I don't think you can answer some of those questions until you ask yourself, what are the foundations? What is the sand or the rock that I'm built on? That's all for today. See you next time.